Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm hopefully my ability to entertain and educate people will match up to the standards that you've placed on us. So, real quick, I'm just going to cover a dynamic learning and adaptation model within the scope of a dual learning context, which in itself stems from a cognitive capacity, which is itself recursive in nature. I'll discuss this in my paper in more detail. So basically the area is basically I'm going to talk about what is learning and adaptation, why is it important to organizations, and I'm going to go through the different models that I've used to make this framework. So learning and adaptation is a concept that was first brought up by Chris Argyris. He called it dual loop learning. And in this instance, we worry about not only learning, which is considered first loop learning, but also how to apply that learning to improve the environment that you operate in. For example, if I was talking earlier about, let's say if a person on the front line selling cars immediately finds that a person wants a green car and not a blue car, the person identifies a defect in the product offering as it relates to the customer, which is a part of the environment. So he learns quickly that, okay, we need to make green cars, and he may even learn how to make the blue cars green. So this information is then learned, but then there must be an adaptation section where we apply this within the organizational construct to allow the organization to both understand that green cars are needed, but also understand the learning process that would take to bake the green cars that was learned in the front line by the person who actually found it out. And so there's a model in here that we'll discuss that will go through more detail on this. So a learning and adaptation model also allows for us to enable the creation of knowledge directly related to the organizational needs. What this means is we not only worry about what's going on in the front lines, but then we also worry about knowledge coming from the organizational top level as it relates to the strategic objectives of the organization. Within this case of blue cars versus green cars, the organization may realize that, well, maybe we don't want to go into the market for green cars. We may want to restrict our market, or we may want to make green cars with different colored mirrors or whatever based upon other environmental inputs. So through the feedback loops that are present in the organization, we could also push learning from the top level of the organization down to the front lines in an evolutionary mode in order to facilitate this learning throughout the organization. So this is a model that was brought up by a guy named Boisseau. He wrote a book in 1990 about knowledge in organization, and he broke it out into 3 different layers. You've got your technologies, which are here. The technologies in general basically allows the people on the front line, those exposed to the local environment, to provide value to the environment and to the organization. Okay? And that's important because when we talk about value, sometimes we want to talk about value from customer value or organizational value. The value has to come from both sides. Because if you don't, then a bit of a dissonance occurs where the organization suddenly is not achieving its strategic objectives. Or if you, as a company, provide something that the environment does not want, obviously we end up with less money and less profit and everything else. So both of those have to be addressed. Now the competency layer, it basically occurs when multiple technologies are combined to provide a general competence in a certain area within a local technological area. Like for instance, if we design some kind of new car that has certain technologies that allow us to have an advantage in the local environment, those would be considered competencies. And when we evolve competencies, we basically identify when these layers here change, this information is pushed up through a feedback loop. And in general, using a cognitive model, which I will discuss in a minute, we will basically compare the new knowledge to the old knowledge and say, is it different? If it is this a difference that we want to have? And then if it is, then we will actually push knowledge down to the technology layer to improve the technology. So the competency's role is ensure that the technology layer is focused and has the resources that it requires to provide value to the local environment. Now the capability layer is our strategic layer. And what this does is this is, okay, we have a strategic niche, competitive advantage, whatever you want to call it, in the larger environment. And do our competencies, what we're good at, match our capabilities, what we want to be good at? Okay, so this is what we want to be good at, it's capabilities, which is linked directly to the organizational strategy. And this basically competency says, okay, can we do what we want to be good at? And in the case of an evolving local environment, we may find out that what the company is good at may no longer be relevant to what the customer wants, the local environment. So as a result, the information through these feedback loops in a dual loop adaptation environment will flow up to this level, which is our capability layer, which is not so much the executives up in the ivory tower, but people responsible for defining and, well, yeah, basically for defining the capabilities of the organization as it relates to our strategy. So in a healthy company, a company would define, okay, this is what we want to be good at. So do our capabilities match our strategy? If the environment evolves, we may change our organizational strategy to address the capabilities that have been detected on the front line to change the way that we do business in relation to our new environmental requirements. So in that way, we have this evolving, holistic mode where each layer improves upon the learning by other layers. So if you notice here, strategic information is flowed down from the organizational strategy via the capability layer, which defines what we want to be good at and which defines how we're going to do what we are good at. Okay? And then, of course, from here up, we have contextual information, which is about the context of the environment. And this is how organizations compare what we're good at with what our environment requires us to do. If you're making a bunch of green cars and nobody wants to buy them, you're going to go out of business. So you have to be able to adapt. Obviously, as my esteemed colleague over there mentioned earlier about the auto industry, some companies are better at it than others. You know, GM, as you mentioned, spent a lot of time building cars nobody wanted to buy. And as a result, they tied up a lot of inventory that they couldn't get rid of. So Toyota is a lot more robust and a lot more holistic, where they learn much quicker from the environment. And this is kind of what I'm going to address. Okay. So the model focuses on a social-technical model systems, which if you look at an organization, we have two parts. We have two basic parts. We have a social system, which involves the people and the interactions between them, okay, and how they are organized. And then we have a technical system, which is basically the processes, procedures, machines, resources, money, everything that the social system uses to exploit the local environment. So the social system interacts with the technical system to create what we call a work domain. This is a cognitive systems term, which basically denotes what part of the local environment that these interactions are designed to exploit. And if you notice, it is the interactions of the social system and the technical system that allows us to exploit a certain percentage of the local environment. And this is important because in many cases, what I've seen in industry is we focus on, we're going to have the best tools, we're going to have the best people, but we never focus on how the two interact. And this is what creates our work domain. And the work domain must focus on how it applies to the local environment. Like, because if you don't, you may have a very skilled social system and technical system, but as it may relate to the local environment, it may not be that effective at all. So this work domain doesn't so much show the interactions of the social system and the technical system in general, but how it relates to how it adds value to the organization and to the environment. Does that make sense? Okay. So although here it kind of shows this work domain outside of the environment, actually this work domain interacts with the local environment to provide value to the customer and hopefully provides profit for the organization. So I use a cognitive systems model, and the cognitive system is a self-organizing system that is able to adapt through the input of information and through the evolution of its parts. And this is recursive in nature, such that each person has this ability. This is what allows us to evolve in our environment. Social systems, organic systems have this. Okay. If I place an eye on the desk, the eye cannot see. But the eye, in its interactions with the brain, the optic nerve, and other parts of the body, allows us to see. Okay. If I pull a brain out and put it on the desk, the brain cannot think. But it's the interactions of the brain, and as it has evolved over, what, 200,000 years we've been humans on this planet, how it has evolved allows us to think. And this is a very important concept because we are not much different than our Neanderthal ancestors. We still think very much like those same people who used to hunt saber-toothed tigers on the plain. And as a result, we have biases that are pretty much a result of our tribal requirements to group together to protect ourselves from the larger animals. It allowed us to adapt to our environment, but our environment has changed so much that we really haven't kept up with the evolution. So in general, we have a detecting function. If we relate this to the human body, we take in inputs from our sight, sound, taste, smell, hearing, and we take those, and our brain sends those signals to what is called a sense-making function. It basically says, okay, well, what are these 5 senses telling me? You know, if I touch this desk, okay, well, how does it feel? What does it look like? I guess if I want to taste it, what does it taste like? So we get the sense-making section here, and what the sense-making function does is it creates our models. It helps us to define what we do. And the sense-making, I don't show it here, but the sense-making is linked, well, actually I do, is linked to a coordinating function which has all these models, everything that we've learned either through our lives on this planet, or some of it is instinctive, okay? They've learned, like, babies will see certain things when they're born, and they'll still either fear it or they'll like it. If a baby sees its mother, oh yeah, safety, okay? So as the sense-making function defines what we see and also applies models to it, so it helps us to define what we see. Then we have, all this goes down to our planning function. Okay, well, what is our objectives? What are we trying to do? And during this time, we have this deciding function that takes the information from the sense-making function and it goes, okay, well, what is it? How does this apply to what I want to do? Okay, if my goal is to walk across the floor and I see something on the floor, my goal is to not fall down. So my brain says, okay, hey, I've decided that you're going to lift up your feet. Okay, very simple. And then through a planning function, we execute it. Now, this function is recursive. And what recursivity is the fact that the characteristics of a system can be seen on a higher level system. So with this thing in mind, we can say that if an individual has this cognitive ability, then teams in general also do it. And there's a thing called team cognition, where teams actually do the exact same thing. Now, it's obviously a lot different, okay? But teams do the same thing. We take in information, we process it, we make sense of it, we decide what is the goal of the team, and then we make plans to execute. And then we execute it, And then the results of our execution comes back into the system, and we have a loop. And at the same time, we compare the results of our actions with the local environment. Say, okay, is what we are doing what we need to do? We have feedback from the local environment. Okay, is the customer happy? Is the industry happy? Is the company happy? If so, then good, keep doing it. If not, then we detect a change. The coordinating function here says, okay, this is what we want to do. What I don't have here is, well, it actually stores what has been done, and it stores what it is expected to do, okay? And all this information goes to a deciding function that basically says, okay, is apple apple? Great, keep doing it. If we go, oh, apple pear, okay, we now need to change our planning, update our social system, technical system to provide what we need to do, and then we get feedback from the local environment. Say, hey, here's your green car. Is this the right shade of green? Yes? Fine. Keep making green cars. Is this green car the wrong shade of green? Okay, fine. We got to change it. Okay. So that's how cognitive systems work in a nutshell. So now, the cognitive learning and adaptation model is something that I borrowed from Russ Akoff. And he used this to teach organizations how to make effective decisions. And what I learned when I was studying this model, now his model is very complex. He's got about 20 steps in his and different things that go all over the place. I simplified it for myself because what I found is when I applied the cognitive systems model approach to this, that it really simplified how the data goes. Okay, so in the first step, you have a symptom and pre-symptom analyzer that basically monitors the work domain and also monitors the environment. And it compares, does the work domain provide us with the capabilities that we require to exploit the environment? If it does, great. And it does this through pulling information from the information subsystem, which is our computers, our tacit information, so to speak. And it also pulls it from our coordinating and monitoring function, which is basically, is the social system designed and aligned such that it is able to provide what we need from the company to provide value to the environment based upon our organizational strategies. Because, for instance, we may want to restrict the work domain if we can't make 10,000 cars, well, why sell 10,000 cars? We may say, okay, we're going to only focus on making 5,000 cars and shrink the work domain, knowing full well that we're not going to satisfy all the demand. Okay, that can happen. And sometimes that's a very wise thing to do. So back to this model. So we have information coming in from both of these, okay? And it basically says, okay, is the work domain doing what we need it to do? Is the customer happy? Are these guys doing their job? If it doesn't, it is signaled here. This coordination and monitoring system is very similar to the coordination system earlier that I had in the previous slide, in that it basically monitors the performance and it compares what is needed with what is going on. Now, when there's a problem, the symptom and pre-symptom analyzer goes, hey, we had a problem, apple, pear. So now, all of a sudden, we go into problem-solving mode. We move the information to a problem-solving node, which is a little bit different than the cognitive systems model that I mentioned earlier. This would be kind of like the deciding function, where we are going to find a solution. We're going to find out why there's a difference and how we're going to fix that difference. And as we solve the problem, we're going to use what is called the memory and comparator function. Basically, this is memory of what we have done and how it has applied in the past. And we're going to compare what we're doing now and the solutions that we do over time with what is required. Okay? And eventually, through this loop here, and over again, we find the symptom, we apply a solution to the problem-solving function. Then, as we change the work domain to fix the problem, we get feedback. And that feedback is sent to the comparator and I guess also to do the memory. But it basically goes, through the memory. Okay, this is a loop. This is the second loop. So the first loop is where we're going to learn. Second loop, adaptation. Okay, and as we apply our problems and our solutions through this loop here, we monitor how the work domain has changed and is it effective. And then at the same time, we're always updating our information that we store. This is our lessons learned. And this is important. This deals with the tacit information, the information that we can capture, okay, which is a very small percent of the total knowledge. Okay, much of the knowledge will be stored in this coordination and monitoring function, which is basically resident inside the brains of the people that are doing the work. Okay, and I did not apply it here because it would make the paper twice as long, but there's a cybernetic function that we can apply to this model where we can now, because this is a recursive function, okay, the characteristics of this at the team level can be applied at the organizational level. We can apply a management function basically at the technical side and at the social side to receive the inputs as things are going on. And then at the competency level, we'll say, okay, obviously this is changing at the technology level. I'll go back to this model here. So at the technology level, we'll be changing our work domain as it relates to the local environment. And we could apply a similar recursive system to the competency layer to say, okay, their environment would be the technology layer, obviously. That's what they see. And they'll say, okay, well, here's our strategy. This is what we're doing. Are the changes what we want to do as a company? If yes, okay, fine. We're going to apply these lessons within the one competency, which is involved with making a green car, so to speak. Okay, and then this is applied at the capability layer. Is the ability to make green cars something that we want to do as a company? If yes, okay, let's apply these lessons to other types of cars so we can make green pickups or green SUVs or green airplanes, whatever. So through this, we can evolve the information here, which is applied at the competence level, which is applied at the capability level based upon the strategy and do we want to have this knowledge, and then it can be flowed down to other technologies. And then, as you can see, we have a feedback loop right here, back and forth. And this goes on continually. And actually in teams, this goes on automatically. We don't know about it. But that's because we are naturally self-organizing by nature, like I mentioned earlier. The problem is, in many cases, we don't have the functions in place to move the knowledge to where it needs to go, to apply it to decisions within the larger organizational context. Okay. So I think that was it. Yeah, so any questions?
Thank you for the interesting presentation.
Professor, I have one question on slide
Okay.
number 4.
Oh, sure. Let me go back to slide number 4 then.
So that means I was able to
Actually, it was funny because she actually said, number the slides. I was like, well, why do you want to number the slides for? I was like, oh, that's why.
I was just recollecting the numbers, and actually I was thinking because
No.
it makes sense of like easy.
I've probably made a dozen presentations and I never once thought about, maybe I should number the slides. So thank you. yeah, I'm sorry.
Professor, I can see I can see some overlap between this competency layer and the capability layer, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the logic between having two such layers? Like, is it the capability layer is the management itself or the
Yeah.
organization? Or
Very close. The capability layer basically, the capability layer basically defines the capability of the organization. This is the strategic decisions that the organization as a whole makes relative to what we know we can do and relative to what our strategy is. So yeah, you're right. There's no, when we talk about social technical like tools and people, as you go up, obviously you'll have more tools down here than you will up here. And that's a very good observation. The value creation is on the front lines. Okay, there's some value creation here, but it's mostly about organizing the technology layer based upon what is required to meet our organizational strategy. And you're absolutely right. The capability layer is more of a defining function. It says, okay, this is what we can do. This is what we are doing. This is what we need to do based upon our organizational strategy. Do the two meet? If so, then we need to align our competencies to meet the capability that we want. So you're right, there's no real tools. We don't have like, okay, take this wrench down to the competency layer and turn some screws. No, you're right. It is more information-based. It's more of a management function. So these are all knowledge groups, okay? So this doesn't really deal with like, because once again, when we deal with evolving systems, if I put a bunch of computers in a room, they don't evolve. They just sit there and do what you tell them to do. And they're very good at doing what you tell them to do. But they need to have interaction from someone, at least until AI shows up. When AI shows up, I may have to revise my model, obviously. But yeah, so the knowledge here is basically focused on how do we provide value to the local customer. Knowledge here is basically focused on how do we apply the knowledge to the customer based upon what the organization requires us to do. Exactly. Then the capability layer is like, okay, what do we do as a company based upon our strategy, and how do we do it now? So you're right. This is more of a management function. You're absolutely right. But the knowledge is basically, if I was going to use a cybernetic system, this would be the like one of the top level management functions within that system. Maybe the next conference I'll talk about the cybernetic system on this. I don't know. We'll see. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Which is why I said, you know, the information is strategic. We're focusing on how everything aligns with strategy going down. And when all the information going up is how it applies within the local environmental context, the environment that we operate in. How many people want green cars? What kind of color green is it? These guys just focus on, okay, yeah, we're going to make green cars and we're going to make this many cars and whatever. This is the markets, you know, demographics, everything else, okay.
Do you have an idea where this cognitive model which you have proposed is going to be? Is it going to be adoptable by any industry, or you have a specific industry in mind when you propose this?
I've applied this within the defense industry. When I was in engineering, I was in the defense industry, and it does apply. The problem is you have barriers, and any organization has this. You have barriers to sharing information. When you have stovepipes, let's say these are two different divisions here. These guys aren't going to want to share their information because they're in competition with each other. Okay. So as a result, you get a very disjointed and very singular information. So perhaps like you were talking about Cisco. Oracle. So companies like that are always evolving, who have to always evolve. This model would probably fit best within that kind of environment. Okay, because you have people that are more willing to share with other parts of the company because they have a more evolutionary mindset where they have to learn from others. They have to learn from the environment. They may have a very fast-changing environment. So I would say that in industries that have fast-paced environments where the environment's always changing, and you have smaller companies and maybe flatter, so you have less stovepipes, this model will probably work best.
I like the model because the model is kind of self-adapting in nature.
Yes.
Double loop feedback.
Yeah.
One observation. This was maybe a kind of observation which you can say whether it's right or wrong, because if you really see the technology layer, I can assume that these are verticals of specific of industry, right?
Correct.
Each of those cylinders are representing a vertical business line or some.
It can.
Right?
What it could be, like this could be one model of car, and we may have 3 different technologies that go into a car, okay, or a rocket or whatever. Okay. And then and you may have multiple competency layers. You may have like 2 or 3 of these in there, depending upon how the information is aligned.
Because in this chain of this model, basically, there is no cross-sectional information exchange between any of these.
You're right, and this is where the cybernetic model comes in. In a cybernetic model, you would have lines coming out this way. Yeah. Look up Stafford Veer Viable Systems Model, and he has a model. The model looks a bit daunting at first, but when you read about it, it makes perfect sense. I can show you later on if you want. But yeah, the cybernetic model is all about aligning, managing the overall information flow. And it's a very good model. I've actually used, one of my friends here, he's a change management consultant, and I've actually used it with him to help him with change management in a company that makes, they deal with information technology. And we were able to apply it pretty well. You know, obviously there's some, you know, models are only as good as the assumptions that go into the model. So one of the assumptions is that all the management functions will work well together. That doesn't always happen. So obviously when you apply it, you have to kind of change the model based upon the assumptions of the actual environment that the model takes place in. Or you just accept the constraint and move on. It just depends. So yeah, that'll be next time. But you're absolutely right. You would have to have a cross-functional management function to, yeah. You know, sharing does happen here. But to go from here to here, yeah, like from here to here because they're different competencies. Yeah, you would basically have a line here and have a line here. So you would measure the amount of knowledge transferred and also monitor the amount of information that is evolved towards the organizational strategy. You're welcome.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for the interesting presentation.
No, thank you.